So today's workout, in terms of the beginning, a lot of the same, just doing a 5x5 on front squats, this time bumping up to 165 pounds. Just, again, slowly working on pushing the weight a little bit higher and higher each and every session. This time, before I got into these sets, I did a warm-up set of 135 after doing the set of 10 at an open bar and a set of 5 at 95. And these are starting to feel just a little heavy, which is odd because overall as a weight for me, it's pretty inconsequential. It's not even body weight at this point, but it is a different movement that I am getting used to. And I think my quads are just getting a lot of work during all of this with doing a lot of the work with the trap bar and then doing the front squats. They're both very quad heavy exercises. And so it's just a lot of focus on them and developing them. So not too shocking they'd feel a lot of tiredness during this block. But looking at these right now, I'm fairly happy with how my front squats are looking. I'm pretty upright, and again, same that I mentioned on Tuesday, my hip position is getting lower and lower with each subsequent workout that I'm doing with this. So I'm definitely getting a little bit more mobility each and every workout with this. So I'm pretty happy. I'm not sure where I'd be able to top out with like a max front squat. I know that recently, whenever I was toying with them, I did like 280 or 265 or 285, something like that. I think I'd probably do higher now because I'm getting used to the technique of it, but I'm also still practicing just repping it and not doing not doing 1 rep maxes. So, it's just kind of working through it. Decided to do a little pause on that one. I didn't like how one of the reps felt whenever I was going through in the beginning of that set because I tilted forward a little bit. So I paused at the end just for a few seconds to kind of feel that bottom position and get in a little bit more effort because I didn't quite get as good of a rep toward the beginning of that set. Just kind of making up for it. This last set felt pretty good. They're nice and quick, which is nice because some of the later sets in the back squat sessions that I was doing before I kind of took a break from back squatting were pretty grueling. One set would almost take as long as 2 of these front squat sets, it would seem like. It was kind of rough. Going to the front squats, decided to do 5 sets of 5 at 440 on a 4-inch block. So warmed up doing a set of 5 at 135, 225, a set of 3 at 315, and the single at 405. This first set, to be honest, was kind of difficult. Just getting the feeling for pulling that heavy a weight for that many reps. It took a bit to get used to. So I was doing 3 minutes rest between these sets. I can really do between deadlift sets just to give myself time to recover, because in terms of overall exertion, doing sets of deadlifts typically take a lot more energy out of me than doing squats. So it's a little bit more time for me to recover. Overall, fairly happy with how these went. After the second set, I did feel a bit more in the zone with them, and they felt easier and easier. But I was having to continually check the weights as I was going through and doing these to make sure they weren't coming off. So after the second set, I went through and took off the 5, the 2.5, and the 10, and reset all the 45s just to be able to keep doing it on both sides. Comes into play later on, but it was honestly fairly good. I was doing them all hook grip with chalk, and there's pretty good speed to them. One thing I was focusing on, as I normally do with these, is breaking the weight, pausing for like half a second or so, and then finishing through the lift, just to get used to that initial moment of getting the weight off of the ground and then being able to exert the amount of force I need to finish that rep. So break, pull, break, pull. And you'll see me do that off the floor too, just because having that initial tension broken and then going through with it is a hell of a lot easier than trying to break the tension and pull at the same time, because you're trying to exert an enormous amount of force right off the get-go to be able to pull through that entire lift. This last set, I just kind of came in, sat down, and decided to go for it. I was a little tired after that 4th set, so I just wanted to rip through and get this. And the clip fell off. Kind of distracted me for a second. I stared at it and kind of thought, okay, what came off? Just a 2.5. Kept an eye on it again because I could feel or hear the 5-pound plate wobbling, and finished my set. So I guess you could say technically I didn't do 5 sets of 5 at 440, but I will counter my so my 45 pound plates that I'm using. 2 of them are at 45 pounds. The 2 sets are at 45 pounds each. One set, the thicker black set that I use whenever I'm doing 225, the deep dish sets are actually 48 pounds a piece. And then the cap weights that I have are 46 and 47 pounds respectively. So, I am doing a little bit more than what I list on the thing every single day, but that's neither here nor there. I'm going to follow what would normally be stamped, what's stamped on the plate, just because if I'm pulling a little bit heavier than when I think I am, good. I'm pulling 445, 450, thinking it's 440, and that level of difficulty is there, kind of making me perceive that, hey, 440 is going to feel like this. And if I were to be on calibrated plates and pulling, it'd be a hell of a lot easier because I'm pulling 10 pounds less with the same expected exertion that I would be doing on a 440 on my own bar. It makes a difference. So, that's kind of one of the fun things to do is if you're buying plates, unless they're calibrated, they're probably going to be off on the weight. You can weigh them and see what they are. It's really not necessary unless you're doing heavier things like back squats or heavy bench, where you need to make sure that the weight's fairly balanced, because large differentials between them, especially once you're getting up higher and higher in weight with more of these plates, a 15-20 pound difference across a bunch of plates on one side compared to the other can make a huge difference in your ability to accomplish that lift. So it's something to keep in mind. Not hugely necessary if you're just doing a few hundred pounds on a deadlift, or a couple hundred, 200-300 pounds on a squat, because ultimately it's not going to make too big of a difference in the end. But it's just something I'm conscious of, but I really don't try to think too much of. One other thing that you can use as a measure in your workout that isn't like the best thing in the world to think of, but just something to think, wow, that was quite a large amount of load that you put yourself through with the just the amount of weight, is that, so on those 5 sets of deadlifts that I did, those were a combined like 11,000 pounds over the span of those entire 5 sets. And that's a lot of weight. That's one of the heaviest deadlift workouts I've ever done. And I think, honestly, one of the heaviest single workouts I've ever done with any specific lift. Even doing like, I did like a set of 5 or 6 with like a 660 pound leg press. Well, I did like 2 sets of that, and that's only 6,000 pounds. And it's one thing to say that, but there's easier exertion with that lift. The overall weight doesn't really mean too much because sometimes the exercise itself is pretty light, and it doesn't have much exertion. But it's always one of those fun things to look at, of like how much weight you moved, because it can just kind of speak to the amount of volume you're able to handle, or how much you get out of doing lower reps versus higher weights compared to lower weights versus higher reps. And I think I talked about that previously when I was outlining the weight curve on like the pig squat, where it's very heavy early on, and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier in terms of the sheer total load until almost 2/3 of the way through the workout, and then it starts tapering off and it gets easier and easier technically per set, because the amount of work that you're doing per set starts getting lower and lower. So it's a matter of being able to endure up to that point to be able to keep doing it. When you're doing something like this, to where it's consistent load across set, it's not as big of a deal because you're bracing for the same amount of load. But total load is something that can come into play when you're doing an endurance workout like the pig squat. Bit of a rambling into the journal there, just kind of like thinking over things of what I've done today and kind of how I've accomplished them. But it's just, little things you can think of that kind of make adjustments to your workout or your planning based on how you're going to be approaching things, what you're doing compared to how you're feeling for that day, or the weight that you're going to have on the bar, depending on the exercise that you're doing. For Saturday, I'm really not sure what I'm going to do. I might just do trap bar deadlifts off of the floor. Today, I did get in the mail some figure eight straps, as well as a new block for training grips. I might play around with that on Saturday, and some ammonia from a Jujimufu's store, his ammonia. So I've never really used smelling salts that much, and I know that it's kind of potent for what he has. And I might give it a shot. If I might do some heavy singles on that trap bar, try to do 475, maybe with those figure eight straps just to get the weight off of the floor. I know I can move it. It's just a matter of picking the right amount of weight beforehand to be able to have enough energy to do it. And figure eight straps are a thing in strongman that allow you to pull a little bit more weight. Typically, it's kind of an open secret that a lot of strongmen can use them to cheat the lift, because you pull on the strap, and you don't have to have your entire hand on it because of that, and you can pretty much grab it with your fingertips while having the strap take a majority of the weight, so that way your grip is as much of a factor in pulling the weight as it is to doing, with something like using wrist wraps or just doing a double overhand or a mixed grip or a hook grip with that. So I don't know, something I'm going to think of and play with, but I might not use them too often outside of just really trying to push weight on block pulls, because I do enjoy trying to train and improve my grip. Like I said, just something to think about, and I will just kind of see what I want to do next.